My flashlight is pointed at the far wall of a cave chamber I have never seen on any map, and the far wall is lined with children's shoes. Not scattered, not dropped, lined. Row after row of small shoes arranged with the precision of someone who had time and intention and care. Small pairs of worn leather and canvas and rubber, sitting side by side from one end of the chamber to the other. And I am standing alone 300 feet underground, and the only way in or out is the passage behind me. And I have been in that passage for 40 minutes, and I did not pass a single living person on the way in. I need you to stay with me through every moment of what I am about to tell you, because by the time I am done you are going to understand that the shoes were not the worst thing in that room. The worst thing in that room was what I found behind them. And what I found behind them found me first. I have been spelunking for 8 years. I want to establish that clearly because what I am about to describe is not the mistake of a beginner. I have 300 hours of documented cave time across 14 systems in 4 states. I carry redundant lighting, a detailed survey map of any system I enter, emergency supplies, a communication device, and I always file a trip plan with someone on the surface who knows when to call for help if I do not check in. I am not reckless, I am meticulous. And the cave system I enter on this particular October Saturday is one I have partially surveyed before, a limestone karst system in a rural county that has a documented main passage of about 600 feet and 2 side chambers, both mapped, both unremarkable. I have been in the main passage twice before, both times without incident. I leave my truck at the pull, off at 7:40 in the morning. The entrance is a low oval in a limestone outcrop, half hidden by cedar scrub, and I have to get on my hands and knees to enter the first 30 feet before the passage opens up to walking height. My primary light is a 2,000 lumen helmet lamp. My secondary is a handheld spot. My tertiary is a headlamp clipped to my harness strap. I am a moving lighting rig. The dark does not surprise me. The main passage runs roughly northeast and the ceiling rises to about 12 feet at its highest point. The floor is silty and damp and holds boot prints well, which means I can track my own path on the return. I move steadily, pausing to note formations, checking my map against the passage geometry. The first mapped side chamber is at 240 feet in, on the left, and it is exactly as it appears on my survey. A low oval room about 15 feet across with a small flowstone formation on the far wall. Nothing unusual. I continue northeast. The second mapped side chamber is at 390 feet, also on the left. But when I reach 390 feet, the left wall is solid limestone. No chamber, no opening. I check my map. I check my position. I pace back and count. The chamber is not there. I spend several minutes examining the left wall carefully. Nothing. I look at the right wall. On the right wall, at 390 feet, there is an opening. Low and narrow, taller than it is wide, just large enough to turn sideways and pass through. It is not on my map. I know immediately that this is not unusual. Cave systems remap themselves in the minds of surveyors, and amateur maps carry errors. An unmapped passage is interesting, not alarming. I check my watch. I have 4 hours of air reserve and 7 hours before my check-in call. I have no reason not to look. I turn sideways and push through the opening. It is tight for about 8 feet, and then it opens, dramatically, into a chamber that takes my breath away in the way that only underground spaces can when they suddenly reveal themselves as enormous. My helmet lamp sweeps the ceiling, 20 feet up, and the walls pull back at least 30 feet to the left and right. It is a substantial room, with beautiful formations on the ceiling, curtains of flowstone hanging like frozen fabric, stalactites throwing perfect shadows in my light. I stand in the entry, and I sweep the room slowly with my helmet lamp, left to right, taking it in. The ceiling, the walls, the floor, the far wall. My lamp reaches the far wall and I stop moving. I stop breathing. I stand completely still with my helmet lamp, pointed at the far wall of this unmarked underground room, and I look at what is there for a very long time before my brain generates a single coherent thought. Shoes. The far wall, maybe 25 feet across, is lined with shoes from left corner to right corner. Children's shoes, small ones, arranged in pairs, toes pointing outward toward the room, heels against the wall, side by side with maybe 2 inches between each pair. Some are leather, very old, cracked and dry, the kind of shoe a child might have worn in a photograph from many decades ago. Some are rubber, soled canvas, the kind from the 70s or 80s. Some are more recent, sneakers and Velcro strap shoes that I recognize as styles from the last 20 or 30 years. They are not all the same age. They span what looks like many decades of children's footwear, and they are all here, together, on the floor against the far wall of an unmarked chamber in a limestone cave system in a rural county, arranged with the patience and care of someone for whom this arrangement mattered enormously. I count them. I cannot help it. I count them slowly, sweeping my lamp from left to right. 41 pairs. 82 individual shoes. 82, in 41 pairs, lined up, waiting. I try to find an explanation that allows me to continue breathing normally. Flooding. A flood could deposit shoes, but a flood does not pair them and line them against a wall and leave nothing else. A historical use of the cave, miners or settlers using this chamber for storage. But shoes from multiple decades spanning what looks like 60 or 70 years of production history cannot belong to a single historical period. Someone has been doing this over a long time. Someone has been coming into this unmarked chamber over many decades and placing shoes. Children's shoes. One pair at a time or several at a time, over years and years and years, and the children those shoes belong to are not here. I am going to leave. I have made this decision clearly, and I am turning to go back through the narrow opening when my lamp swings across the left side of the room, and I see the other passage. On the left wall, half hidden by a flowstone column that partially blocks it, there is another opening, wider than the one I entered through, tall enough to walk into upright. And from inside it there is something I cannot explain, and have never been able to explain, and which made me run, which made me go back through the tight passage and down the main corridor, and out of that cave faster than I have ever moved underground in 8 years. There is no air movement in a sealed cave chamber. The air is still, dead still. The formations on the ceiling tell you this. They grow in perfect stillness over thousands of years. The chamber I am standing in has still air. I know this because I can feel it, the absolute absence of draft. But from the opening in the left wall there is airflow. A slow, steady, warm airflow, moving toward me. And warmth underground means one thing. In limestone karst systems in this part of the country, warmth means depth, means connection to something far below. And the airflow from something far below is moving against me, toward me, and it smells like the only thing it can possibly smell like down here in the dark, which is recent human habitation. Not ancient, not historical. Recent. And then my light catches it. On the floor just inside the opening in the left wall. One shoe. Children's size, small, sneaker Velcro strap, sitting alone, not paired. One shoe. Placed just inside the entrance to whatever is below. Placed recently enough that the silt around it is undisturbed, no slow mineral deposit, no cave dust settling. Placed within days. One shoe inside the passage that goes down, and nothing else. I am out of that cave in 14 minutes. I call the sheriff's office from my truck. They send 2 deputies who look at me with the specific expression of people who have heard strange things before. They go in. They come back out 40 minutes later, and they call for more people. I am asked to stay. I stay for 6 hours in the parking area, while more people go in and come out, and nobody tells me anything except that I should not go back in, and that someone will be in touch. Someone calls me 3 days later and tells me the cave system is closed pending investigation, and asks me several questions about whether I touched anything, or moved anything, or saw anyone near the entrance when I arrived. I answer all the questions. I ask my own questions. I am told the investigation is ongoing. I am told nothing else. That was 11 months ago. The cave is still closed. No news report has mentioned it. No official statement has been released. 80, 2 shoes in 40, 1 pairs and a warm passage going down, and 1 shoe placed alone at its entrance, and I have heard nothing. And I think about what is below that passage, and I think about the warmth, and I think about the smell of recent habitation, and I think about the children those shoes belong to, and I think these thoughts at 3 in the morning, when the world is dark and quiet, and I cannot make them stop. Story number 2. I am driving past a car accident for the third time on the same stretch of road, and the bodies that were there the first 2 times are gone. Not the cars. The cars are still there, crumpled and spread across both lanes, headlights of one still on, the other's hood folded against the guardrail. But the people who were lying on the road the first 2 times I passed, the 3 people I saw clearly in my headlights each time, the 3 people I slowed down for, the 3 people I tried to call emergency services about and could not get a signal for, those people are not there. The road where they were is empty, and I am sitting in my idling car in the middle of this road staring at 2 wrecked cars with no one around them, and I am trying to understand what I am inside of right now. Whether it is a place, whether it is a moment, whether the road I am on goes where roads are supposed to go, whether if I drive forward I will reach somewhere real. I do not know how to make you feel what I felt sitting there, but I am going to try. Because what happened on that road that night is not something a person drives away from without carrying it. I still carry it. I will always carry it. It is a November Friday night, and I am driving home from a work conference 3 hours away. I left the hotel later than I planned, got caught in dinner that ran long, and by the time I am on the highway it is 11:40 at night. The route home takes me off the interstate, after the first hour onto state roads. 2-lane roads through farmland and scattered small towns, the kind of roads that go dark between the towns with nothing on either side but field and tree line. I know this route. I have driven it a dozen times. 2 hours on these roads in the dark and then I am home. At the 1 hour 20-minute mark, on a straight stretch of road between 2 towns I will not name, I come over a gentle rise and my headlights fall on an accident. 2 cars, one in each lane, one facing the right way and one facing wrong, both severely damaged, the collision clearly recent. My headlights catch the steam still rising from one engine. I slow immediately and stop with my hazards on, and I look. On the road between and around the cars I can see 3 people. One is sitting against the guardrail with their knees up. One is lying flat on the center line. One is face down near the damaged hood of the car facing the wrong direction. None of them are moving. I grab my phone and I dial 911. No signal. 1 bar appears and vanishes. I try twice more. Nothing. I roll down my window and I try to call out to any of the 3 people. No response, no movement. I am 3 feet past the crest of the rise and any car coming the other way over that rise will hit me at speed. I make the decision to go for help, to get far enough down this road to find a signal or a house or a gas station and get emergency services on the way. I drive around the accident carefully, slowly, barely a foot of clearance between my passenger door and the crumpled hood on the right, and I get through and I accelerate. I drive hard for 7 minutes. I find a signal. I call 911. I tell them the location, the route number, the approximate mile marker I noted when I passed. They take the information. They ask me to return to the scene if I can do so safely and stay until units arrive. I turn around. I drive back. I come over the same rise from the other direction and my headlights fall on the accident and I slow. The cars are still there. Steam still rising. Headlight of the 1 car still on. And the 3 people are still there. Same positions. The person against the guardrail with knees up. The person flat on the center line. The person face down near the hood, exactly as they were. I pull past the crest and stop, and I get out this time. I call out. No response. I take my phone's flashlight and I walk toward the person sitting against the guardrail, and I get within 10 feet, and I stop. I stop because something is wrong with what I am seeing. Something is wrong with the way the person is sitting. The angle of the body against the rail, the way the head is positioned. Something that my conscious mind is labeling strange before my eyes can tell my brain why. I take 1 more step. I shine my light. I look at the face. I cannot tell you what I see in detail because I have tried to put it into words for 11 months, and the words do not exist. I can tell you that it is a face. I can tell you that it is wrong in a way that goes beyond injury. I can tell you that what is wrong with it is not something that any accident I have ever seen photographs of, or read accounts of, or heard described by first responders would produce. It is wrong in a foundational way. in a way that makes the part of my brain that has been quietly sending alarm signals since I first topped that rise now begins screaming. I back up, I get back in my car. I sit with my hazards on, and I breathe and I look through my windshield at the 3 unmoving people and the 2 wrecked cars, and I decide to stay in the car until the police arrive. I wait 22 minutes. No police. No headlights from either direction. No cars at all. This road at this time of night is quiet, but in 22 minutes on a state route, I would expect at least 1 vehicle. Nothing passes in either direction. I check my phone. Signal is present. I call 911 again. They have the report from my earlier call. They say units are en route, estimated 12 minutes. I sit. I watch. The 3 people do not move. Not even the subtle shift of breathing. No rise and fall of the chest. No adjustment of position. Absolutely still. And then I notice something I did not notice before. The steam from the engine is still rising. The same amount of steam. The same volume. In 22 minutes of sitting here, the steam from that engine has not decreased. An engine stops steaming as it cools. This engine is producing the exact same volume of steam it was producing when I first arrived. Like no time is passing under that hood. Like the engine is frozen in the moment of impact and cannot cool, because the moment itself cannot move forward. I put my car in drive. I drive forward, past the accident, away from it, in the direction I was originally traveling. I do not stop this time. I drive for 4 minutes, and I come around a long curve and I top a small rise and my headlights fall on the accident. Again. The same 2 cars. The same positions. The same 3 people. The same steam rising in the same volume from the same engine. I have driven 4 minutes in one direction from this accident scene and arrived at it again from the same angle. I am shaking so hard I can barely keep my hands on the wheel. I stop the car. I stare. The person who was sitting against the guardrail with knees up is still against the guardrail. But the knees are not up anymore. The person is sitting with legs extended flat now. They have moved. One of them has moved. And then, as I watch, the one lying flat on the center line slowly, with the mechanical deliberateness of something that is not performing movement naturally, turns its head toward my headlights. I drive. I do not stop. I do not slow down. I drive straight at and through the accident scene, close my eyes for the 3 seconds it takes to pass through the gap between the cars, and I come out the other side, and I drive at 90 miles an hour for 6 minutes, until I hit a town with lights and gas stations and people, and I pull into the first lit parking lot, and I stop the car, and I sit there for 40 minutes, before I can make my hands stop shaking enough to drive home. The police report I filed that night references a 2-vehicle accident on that route. Officers arrived to find 2 abandoned vehicles with damage consistent with a collision. No injured parties. No fatalities. No evidence of anyone having been present at the scene other than the drivers, who were located an hour later at a farmhouse half a mile away, both having walked away from the crash and gone for help on foot, both alive, both accounted for. 2 people. 2 drivers, 2 people total. I saw 3. I have driven that route twice since that night. Both times in the daytime. Both times I slow when I come to the rise. Both times the road on the other side is empty and normal, and the guardrail on the right shows no damage. But on my second daytime drive, on the guardrail where the person was sitting, at exactly the height where a person sitting with their back to the rail would rest their head, there is a mark on the metal. A dark transfer on the galvanized surface, the shape of the back of a head, pressed there with enough force or enough time to leave an impression. 2 people walked away from that crash. 2 people are fully accounted for. And something left the mark of its head on the guardrail at exactly the height of the person I watched sitting there across 3 impossible passes on a road that does not loop, on a night when the steam never cooled and one of them turned its head toward my lights. Story number 3. Someone is walking on the deck above my cabin, and I am the only person on this boat. I need you to hear that clearly and completely before anything else. I have been sailing solo for 11 years. I know this vessel the way I know my own body. I know every sound she makes, every creak of the rigging, every knock of the boom, every groan of the hull in a swell. I know the sound of a line dragging across the deck and the sound of a block swinging free, and the sound of rain on fiberglass, and none of those things is what I am hearing right now. What I am hearing is footsteps. Wait. Deliberate, sequential, evenly spaced footsteps moving from the bow toward the stern on the deck directly above my bunk. And there is no person up there. And I checked before dark. I checked the entire boat, every compartment, every locker, every reachable space. And there is nothing on this boat that walks. And yet something is walking. And it has been walking for 6 minutes. And it just stopped directly above where I am lying. And it has not moved since. Something is standing on my deck in the middle of the ocean at 2:40 in the morning, standing still, directly above me, and I have not moved either. We are both completely still. And I do not know what happens when one of us moves first. I am 9 days into a solo passage from the Chesapeake Bay to Bermuda, roughly 600 nautical miles, a road I have done twice before, a well-trafficked offshore passage for experienced sailors, not dangerous in good conditions. And the conditions on this particular September have been excellent. Light to moderate winds, manageable swells, clear nights. I am sailing a 38-foot sloop, a solid offshore boat, and I am comfortable and confident and in good spirits. My autopilot is handling steering. My radar alarm is set to alert me to ship traffic. My routine is 4 hours on watch, 4 hours below, cycling through the passage. It is during an off-watch sleep period that this begins. I go below at 2:15. I have been on deck for 4 hours. The sky is clear. The radar shows nothing within 12 miles. The wind is steady from the southwest at 12 knots. The boat is sailing herself beautifully. I set my alarm for 6:15. I lie down on the port settee, which is my sea berth, and I close my eyes. The sounds of the boat settle over me the way they always do, the familiar orchestration of a sailboat offshore at night. The water rushing along the whole inches from my head, the rhythmic creak of the standing rigging, the autopilot making its small corrections with a faint wear. I know every note of this. I fall asleep quickly. I wake up 11 minutes later, and I am instantly awake the way you are when something wakes you rather than time. Not a gradual surfacing, an immediate snap to full alertness. I lie still and I listen and I hear it. Footsteps, on the deck above me. The deck of a fiberglass sailboat is not thick, and it transmits sound downward with clarity. What I hear is the creak and compression of fiberglass under weight, moving from forward to aft in measured steps. 1. Pause. 1. The pace of something walking carefully on a moving surface. The pace of something that knows where it is going. I lie still for 60 seconds. I tell myself it is a large piece of gear that has come loose and is rolling. But rolling gear does not move in perfectly timed, evenly spaced sequential impacts with pauses between them. I tell myself it is a wave effect. The boat horsing in a certain rhythm. But horsing affects the whole boat, and what I am hearing is localized and moving. Progressing from one end of the deck to the other with directional intent. I tell myself every rational thing I can generate, and none of them explain individual sequential weight. Bearing footsteps moving from my bow to my stern on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean with no other person aboard. I get up. I put on my harness automatically, the habit of 9 years of offshore sailing that happens without thought. Clip the tether to the jackline inside the companionway, and I go up. I come up through the hatch and I am on deck and I swing my headlamp forward and aft and around the entire boat in one fast sweep. Nothing. The deck is empty. Completely, entirely empty. No person, no animal, no loose gear, no displaced line. The deck is as I left it 4 hours ago. The tiller is locked on autopilot. The sails are trimmed and full. The running lights cast their green and red glow forward. The ocean stretches out in every direction under a sky full of stars. I walk the full deck, every inch, forward to the bow pulpit and back to the stern rail. I check every locker cover. I look over the sides. Nothing in the water alongside. Nothing anywhere. I stand at the stern and look forward along the full length of my boat, and there is nothing. I go back below. I lie down, and 7 minutes later the footsteps begin again. This time they start at the stern, directly above my feet, and they move forward, slow, even, deliberate, moving from the stern toward the bow in the same measured pace as before, and I lie in my bunk and I stare at the cabin ceiling and I count the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, They stop at 8, somewhere above my head, forward of the mast. They stop, and there is silence, and the silence is so different from the absence of sound before the footsteps that they might as well be different elements entirely. The silence after the footsteps has weight. It has presence. The way the air in a room feels different when someone is standing in it, even if you cannot see them. I do not go up again. I lie perfectly still in my bunk, and I breathe slowly, and I listen. For 22 minutes nothing happens. And then, from directly above my head, a single impact, not a step, a deliberate, isolated, single point of weight placed on the deck above my face. Something pressing down. Something that knows I am here. Something that is pressing down on the deck above my face to tell me it knows exactly where I am in the space below it. I close my eyes. I tell myself I will not sleep. I do not sleep. I lie there until first light begins to come through the ports, and then I go up and I sail the boat into full daylight, and I do not go below again for 4 hours. When I finally do go below in daylight to make food and check systems, I see something I did not see in the dark. On the cabin ceiling, the interior surface of the deck above my bunk, there are marks. Small, circular compression marks in the gel coat. 4 of them in a line, spaced evenly, running from above my feet to above my head. The spacing is consistent. The size is consistent. They are the diameter of a thumb pressed down with force into the gel coat. 4 marks, in a line, above my bunk, running the length of my sleeping body, pressed into the interior surface of the deck from above, from outside, from someone or something standing on my deck, and pressing down with 4 fingers to trace exactly where I was lying in the dark below. I have had 2 marine surveyors look at those marks. Both say they cannot identify the cause. One says the marks appear recent. One says the gel coat compression is consistent with point, load pressure from above. Neither can tell me what pressed them. I have no explanation. I have no rational account that satisfies all the evidence. What I have is 4 marks in a line above where I slept, and the memory of footsteps that came back after I checked and found nothing, and the memory of that single deliberate impact above my face, and the knowledge that whatever was on my deck that night knew exactly where I was below it, and pressed down to make sure I knew it too. I still sail solo. I cannot stop. It is the thing I love most in the world. But I do not sleep through the night passage anymore. I stay on deck. I tell people it is because I prefer it, prefer the stars and the air and the feel of the helm. That is part of it. But the other part, the part I do not say out loud very often, is that I am not sure what would have happened if I had been asleep when it pressed those 4 marks into the deck above my face. I am not sure the marks are all it was capable of leaving, and I would rather be on deck in the dark and the cold and the wind than be below in my bunk in the warm and the quiet and the dark, staring up at the ceiling, waiting to feel the pressure of something finding me again,